I apologize for an unattractive wife. Those were the shocking words blurted out by my mother-in-law, who suddenly snatched the mic from my father-in-law, who was giving a speech during our wedding ceremony. I'll discipline her properly from now on, to at least make her a better wife on the inside, she said, sounding satisfied, a stark contrast to the chilling silence that swept through the venue. I was flabbergasted and turned to look at my husband, only to find him smirking in a disturbing way. As my mind went blank and my body began to tremble from surprise and shock, an older gentleman purposefully made a loud noise as he stood from his seat. "Is that all you wanted to say?" he asked, drawing everyone's attention. He then walked towards me with confidence. "Oh my God, it's him!" The moment my husband saw him, his eyes widened in surprise. Ignoring his reaction, the man took my arm and said, "Let's get out of here." Before I could even open my mouth, he led me out of the reception hall. Dragging the dress I never wanted in the first place along the hotel corridor, a flood of thoughts began to fill my mind. My name is Angela, a 35-year-old woman. I grew up in a single-parent household after my parents divorced when I was in elementary school. In my 20s, my mother fell ill and needed care, so my days were filled with work and caring for her. Still single in my 30s, I met a man named Steven. He proposed to me even knowing that I was taking care of my mother after he visited my office for work and I assisted him at the reception desk. Steve was a great guy, and I thought I might never get another chance to marry if I didn't take this opportunity. But I couldn't just leave my mother alone. It's been a year since Steve and I started dating. The longer our relationship lasted, the more I struggled with my decision. However, Steve blew away all my worries, saying, "I know how much you care about your mother, so why don't we become a family of 3? Touched by his proposal, I decided to marry him. When we announced our marriage to both of our parents, my mother was overjoyed, but my soon-to-be mother-in-law, let's call her Ruth, had a completely opposite reaction. I'll tell you up front, I don't recognize a woman from a single-parent family as a worthy wife. That was the sharp comment she made when we visited Steve's house to introduce ourselves as a couple for the first time. From then on, every time we met for wedding preparations, she would respond to everything I said with sarcasm. "She's just an old hag who's past her prime, and she's got a mother to take care of. My poor son," she would say. "I can tolerate you insulting me, but please don't speak ill of my mother. After all, it was Steve who said he wanted to be a part of our family. I bet you used some sly tricks to seduce my son." "I didn't do such a thing." "Well, your mother probably cheated on your father, and that's why he left." Every time I tried to fight back, Ruth would lash out at me 10 times worse. I thought about talking to Steve about it, but I didn't want to burden him with this unnecessary worry on the threshold of our married life. Emboldened, my mother-in-law started interfering in the wedding plans and even showed up on the day we were picking out the wedding dress with my husband. "I'll choose the best wedding dress for you," she announced. "Mom has a great sense of style. She'll definitely pick a good dress. You're happy about it, aren't you?" My husband chimed in. "I appreciate your intentions, but I want to choose a dress that I personally like," I responded. "But I came all this way for you. I'm so disappointed," my mother-in-law said, sounding wounded. "Hey, don't make Mom cry," my husband snapped at me. He was always quick to side with his mother, especially when she played the victim. However, I could not give in when it came to the wedding dress, arguably one of the highlights of the wedding. "I'm really sorry, but I'll be choosing my own dress. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I want to be completely satisfied with it," I stated firmly. Upon hearing my determination, my mother-in-law reluctantly backed off, but she held a grudge about it. And on the morning of the wedding day, she did something unthinkable. "What an awful dress. The veil's tasteless too. You'd look better wearing a garbage bag with a supermarket sale flyer on your head," she exclaimed upon seeing my wedding dress displayed in the dressing room of the hotel where the ceremony was held. I was really upset, but I wanted to avoid any trouble on my big day, so I tried to respond calmly. "My mom, who loves sewing, made the veil herself. We chose the dress together. I really like it," I replied. "You're going to wear something chosen by a woman who cheated and got dumped by her man?" Suddenly, my mother-in-law's eyes widened and she raised her voice, looking furious, and then she splashed canned coffee from her purse all over my dress. "Stop it! What are you doing?" I exclaimed, watching in horror as my dress quickly turned brown. I quickly grabbed a towel nearby to wipe the dress, but it was too late. The dress was in no condition to be worn. This is what happens when you don't listen to me. I've left a dress I chose with the ceremony staff. You're wearing that for the wedding, okay? She stated and then left the dressing room. She must have brought the canned coffee intending to ruin my dress from the beginning since she had another dress prepared. Knowing this, I was shaking with anger and frustration. I then headed to the separate waiting room where my husband was and tearfully explained what just happened. This is so unfair. It's going to ruin the wedding. What do you want me to do about it? He retorted. It's what your mother did. I've been silent until now, but there were other times. Enough already. You're annoying. Eh? He interrupted, shouting in anger. His expression was just like my mother-in-law's when she spilled the coffee on my dress. I was taken aback by his sudden change in attitude, but he quickly seemed to snap back to reality and apologized. I'm sorry. I just can't deal with this right now. My husband was sweating profusely and seemed extremely tense. Feeling sorry for barging in and losing my temper, I decided to calm down and listen to him. You seem pretty stressed out. What's going on? I asked. Actually, the CEO of my company is suddenly attending our wedding. It seems that by chance, the CEO, who happened to be at the hotel for work, met Steven's boss, and after hearing about our wedding today, he prepared a gift. Furthermore, since one of Steven's colleagues couldn't attend due to sudden illness and there was an empty seat, they invited the CEO to participate as well. What a coincidence! Showing off your skills here might lead to a promotion. You don't have time to worry about your dress. Just do as my mother says. I didn't appreciate the way he put it, but it seemed useless to argue with my absent-minded husband. So I decided to leave the scene. Then the wedding began. The ceremony at the church on the hotel's rooftop went off without a hitch, and I was relieved. Until the family speeches at the reception. My mother-in-law went all out. Raised in a single-parent household, she lacks common sense and is an ugly bride, but I'll make sure to discipline her. Ignoring my father-in-law's pleas to stop, my mother-in-law held a microphone tight and declared this loudly. Just as I was about to explode with anger, a middle-aged man stood up with vigor and came over to me. You don't belong in a place like this, the man said, staring at my mother-in-law. Then he started to lead me away. Who is that old man? Interrupting my speech? What nerve does he have? As my mother-in-law looked at the man leading me away, she shrieked. However, next to her, Stephen was turning pale. Why is the CEO here? It turned out that the middle-aged man was the CEO of Stephen's company. Sweating profusely from his forehead, Stephen seemed extremely flustered. We hurriedly left the reception hall and returned to the dressing room, leaving the flustered men behind. Why is my father here? That's right. The CEO of Stephen's company was also my biological father. The reason for my parents' divorce was a personality mismatch. They fought constantly while both working and decided to divorce because they thought it was affecting me negatively. Therefore, even after the divorce, my parents occasionally met. I saw my father several times a month and received proper child support until I became an adult. Even after my mother needed care, he helped out in various ways, so our relationship was very good. However, I hadn't asked much about my father's job. I can't believe my father is the CEO of Stephen's company. Even I was surprised by this coincidence. Why are you here when you said you had an important business meeting and couldn't attend my wedding? My business meeting ended much earlier than I thought. I decided to come here to give you the gift at least, then I met one of the employees at the entrance. It seems that my father was the boss Stephen was talking about. He found it was my wedding when he asked for the names of the bride and groom to prepare the gift for us. When I told the employee about the situation, I heard there was a last-minute cancellation and a seat was available, so I decided to participate. Why didn't you tell me then? After consulting with your mother, we decided to make it a surprise. I never imagined it would turn out like this. My father looked somewhat sad and sighed. Just as I was about to talk to my father, the door of the dressing room opened. Angela, you can't just run off like that. My mother-in-law, who had arrived, was speaking in a fake sweet voice I had never heard before. I got goosebumps from how creepy it was. She must have heard from her husband that my father was the CEO. Who do you think caused all of this? That was just a little joke. How dare you make such a vulgar joke at my daughter's big moment? That's even more unforgivable. What? No, it wasn't a joke then. Huh? So you're saying you seriously called my daughter ugly? Challenged by my father, my mother-in-law was lost for words, repeating, and well, while her eyes darted back and forth. Suddenly, my husband rushed in, his footsteps echoing, and he prostrated himself before my father. I apologize for the rudeness of my mother. You're apologizing to the wrong person, my father said, looking down at my husband with a cold gaze and a stern voice. Angela, I'm sorry. My mom did all this on her own. If that's the case, why didn't you stop your mother when she was insulting me? I was shocked and couldn't move. Besides, my dad tried to stop her. But it sure seemed like you were grinning and sitting pretty comfortably. That's just your imagination. Anyway, the only one to blame for everything is my mom. My husband shouted, pointing accusingly at his mother. Stephen, are you betraying your mama? Didn't we agree to discipline this cheeky wife together? Hey, don't say unnecessary things. You said we should use this wife who won't let mama choose her dress like a rag and make her understand her place. Shut up. My husband covered his mother's mouth to stop her from speaking further. Her muffled voice was truly comical. So, would you like to explain what's really going on? No, this is something my mother did on her own. It's for your own good to be honest right now, don't you think? Upon my father's stern questioning, my husband shuddered and finally began to speak. When Angela insisted on choosing her wedding dress, my mother said she would become a cheeky wife if not properly disciplined. What's wrong with choosing my own dress? It's only natural that a wife listens to her mother-in-law, isn't it? If you can't even do that, I thought you'd become a bad wife who wouldn't listen to her husband in the future. First of all, a married couple should be equals, right? There's no hierarchy. If I can't make you listen to me, there's no point in marrying a woman on the verge of becoming an old hag. The truth finally slipped out of my husband's mouth. He had decided to marry me not because he loved me for who I am, but because he thought I would be a convenient tool to use. All those words about wanting to take care of my mother, wanting to become a family of 3, were they all lies? Of course. You have plenty of savings, don't you? I was planning to use that to build a 2-family house. I wanted to make you work like a slave and live happily with my mother, but now it's all ruined. Once my husband started speaking his mind, there was no stopping him. He was not only intent on making me submit, but was also willing to drain our savings. How selfish could a person be? Seeing my disgust, my husband seemed to realize he had misspoken, and his face took on a shocked expression. Ah, no, that's not what I meant. That's it, it's over. You don't need a wife who won't spend money or act as a servant, do you? Wait a minute, I just lost my temper and blurted out something I didn't mean. As if I could believe that. I simply can't marry you. Sensing my resolve, my husband was visibly shaken, pacing around aimlessly. Then he seemed to remember something. Our wedding is today. We can't possibly send the guests home now. I will apologize to our guests and return their gifts. Since your mother is the cause of our canceled engagement, you will bear the cost of the wedding. You're joking. Even if we were to break up, it's your fault for making a fuss about one little outburst from my mom. As if it was just one time. Huh? All the awful things you've said to me, they're all right here. I pulled out my smartphone from my purse. On it, I had recorded countless unbearable words from my mother-in-law. Pressing the play button, words like poor, ugly, harsh woman came out in quick succession in her unpleasant voice. When did I record all this? Well, I'm not a fool, you know. I will be claiming damages for emotional distress. I was just trying to discipline my daughter-in-law. I didn't do anything wrong. If you can't pay willingly, I'll take you to court. Please say the same thing in front of the judge. What are you talking about? This isn't a joke. Realizing she'd be at a disadvantage in court, my mother-in-law went pale and slumped on the spot. I'll reconsider your position at the company as well. With the final nail in the coffin for my father, my husband finally broke down and fell to his knees. I'm sorry, Angela. Please forgive me. That's right, Angela. You're already married. You can't just divorce so easily. If we can overcome this wall, we'll make a great couple, right? My husband and my mother-in-law started pleading. I forcefully shook them off and glared at them. Silence, scum. Go to hell. With that, I left the dressing room. I then followed through with my declaration of canceling my engagement with Stephen and filed a claim for emotional distress against my mother-in-law. The full cost of the wedding was paid by my ex-husband, and the issue was finally settled. After that, my ex-husband was ostracized at work when his colleagues found out about the wedding fiasco. Additionally, at my father's behest, he was relocated to a remote branch in Nebraska, effectively a demotion. My former mother-in-law was scorned by her relatives for tarnishing their reputation and divorced from my former father-in-law. She was promptly kicked out of the house. I am now focusing on my work and have no interest in getting married again. Over time, my parents have also regained their composure and we occasionally have family dinners. I am now living a very happy life.